To come, the world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is All in Our Family. I'm S. Yolanda Robinson. We are all family. All in Our Family, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. Radio.com. We go where you go, and this is the world's greatest radio, and you're in touch with All in Our Family, and I'm S. Yolanda Robinson, and this is radio, the way it should be heard. Oh, listening audience, I'm telling you, I went down Westerville this week, and I got emotional. I have never seen a community that was so caring, and I send out my condolences to the families of the officers that got shot, and to that entire community. It was just an emotional scene to see all those people coming from blocks, you know, to show their support for that family. And we send out, we with the All in Our Family staff and the Talktainment Radio staff, we send our condolences out to them and to the community. Also, on today's program, you know, we have a crisis in our community, and we need to talk about it and need to find out, you know, addiction is something that is hurting our families, you know, and it's not only hurting this generation, but it's hurting the generations to come. Now, I have in the studio today Melissa Green and Barbara Clark. Melissa Green is from the Columbus Health Department, and Barbara Clark is a community activist, advocate. She's all over the place trying to solve issues. And so I asked Barbara to come in because I know that she does a lot of grassroots organizing, and she can tell you what is really happening, occurring in our families. She's done a lot of work with families. But Melissa, you're with the Columbus City Health Department, and could you tell us what is an addiction?
So in the world of public health, we talk about this all the time. Addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease. It's not a disease of somebody's character. It's not a moral failing or a deficit. It is an actual disease of the brain. Addiction affects your brain in a couple of very distinct ways. First, you have these functional changes that occur in the brain, and those functional changes make using a substance very much compulsive behavior that feels very similar to the need to breathe. So if you've ever been held underwater accidentally, that's not a very good feeling, and that's exactly what it feels like to go through withdrawal. And then the second way that addiction affects your brain is it actually changes the structure of your brain, the size and the shapes of different parts and pieces of your brain. And that structural change that occurs is why we consider this to be a chronic disease. It's a long-lasting disease. So if you've ever broken a bone, it takes years. Sometimes you never get back to full strength because of that structural injury that's occurred. And the injury that occurs to your brain when you become addicted to a substance is the same way. It takes long-term treatment and support in order to be able to recover.
Oh my gosh! Now, can you inherit it? Is it genetic?
Yeah, there's genetic components, there's environmental components, social components, and then of course the chemical pieces. So somebody who has a history of addiction in their family is genetically oftentimes much more predisposed to developing an addiction later on in life. Another risk factor that we talk about a lot is early exposure to an addictive substance. So if you are a teenager, we want you to avoid using any illicit substances as long as you possibly can, because that can change your brain again during those developmental stages of your life to then contribute to you developing an addiction later on.
What is the profile of a person that's addicted? Is it a certain income, a certain race, a certain gender? What is the profile of it? Age?
Yeah, I mean, so there really is no profile. The Department of Health and Human Services put out a report saying that every neighborhood has been impacted. There's not a community that hasn't been affected by addiction. So right now, everybody is at risk, especially more and more. All of our drugs are becoming contaminated with fentanyl and carfentanil, which is a really high, powerful, potent, addictive opiate. And so even people that might not even be seeking out opiates are going to start encountering them accidentally. And those individuals, too, are at very high risk of overdose or developing an opiate addiction.
We're going to talk about that too, because I want to but I want to ask Barbara. Barbara, you're out there all the time. I mean, you go door to door talking to people. Is it bad?
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad. It's so bad. I see it affecting families that you wouldn't otherwise think that they were addicted. The opiate, I don't know if they've labeled gabapentin as an opiate yet, but I have been to homes and they're using that as well.
Wow.
So we have a bad drug crisis here in Central Ohio, and I think it's probably all over the country, and it's linked to poverty. It's linked to poverty and mental health.
Why do you say that?
It is underlying untreated and undiagnosed mental health. I believe, because when talking to people and you talk about their lifestyle, you talk about their upbringing, the depression, covering up this pain, things that's going on in my household, I've been molested, I've been, all of that stuff brings on mental health issues, which brings up the cover-up with the drugs and alcohol. But with the opiates, it's hitting. I mean, you got teenagers on opiates. And every day I see it. I see this, what they call millennium. They're in a crisis. And we have to do something to help support them to see that their life does mean something. You are important, and that you have a purpose in life. To me, it seems like, and I don't want to say the adversary or whatever, has peeked into your future and see that God has something great for you, and He's trying to destroy it. And I think the opiates is it.
What can we do? I mean, if you know someone that is suffering through addiction, what can you do to support that person?
So I think that having a plan is a really good place to start. So wrapping your arms around that person and letting them know that you're here for them and you care for them is really important. But the system that we exist in right now is a very complicated one. And so knowing what resources are available out there, having a plan for, what are you going to say to that person outside of just stop using that drug. Like we talked about, addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease. So, it's going to require more than just that person stopping using a substance. So know what resources are in the community. Talk to that individual about what supports they have. Do they have health insurance? If they don't, let's get you some health insurance. That's a good place to start. What providers would you qualify for? What type of care do you need? There's lots of different types of care, and there's more than one path to recovery. So not my recovery journey might not be the same journey that you go down, and that's okay. Maybe I work better from peer support. Maybe something like Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous is a good way for me. Maybe you need outpatient treatment. Maybe someone else needs residential. So talk to the people that are affected by addiction and determine what their needs are, and then help them come up with a plan.
What if they refuse to do a plan? And they're under denial? There's nothing wrong with me you know, and I can handle this all by myself, and I'm not addicted.
Right.
I just take these pills, you know, or whatever.
What we call in the recovery world is they have to travel their path.
Yep.
They have to travel. They have to want it. They have to want it. They will be in denial for years and years out. I see people every day, and they feel like they have it under control. I only do it in the morning, and I just tell them, keep on living, keep on living, and it's going to grow. It's going to grow. Working with people in the community and talking to people in the community, their lifestyle has a whole lot to do with it. And once you change your lifestyle, you change that behavior. You no longer have the desire to self-destruct, if that's word we want to use. Addicts that I've known, and me being a recovering addict myself, when I said I'm done, you know, I was done. I was a heroin user for years, and one day I said, I don't want to do this no more. Now, as she said, some people's recovery is not other people's recovery, but me, this person, this addict, no longer wanted to do heroin, but I didn't seek that professional help to talk about why I was doing it, you know, pain and my lifestyle. It was until then that when I received the treatment that I had, was I able to live a life clean and sober.
I think also if someone's not ready yet to seek professional help, you know, like you said, you really have to be ready. It's a huge lifestyle change. But talking to those people then, if they're not ready to get help today, talking to them and helping them think through, now your job isn't to be their therapist, but as a friend or as a family member, you can help them think through, how is this substance affecting their life? So maybe they can arrive at that realization themselves, like, man, this is affecting my life. I really do need to get some professional help. And then also having some realistic conversations with them about, if you're not ready to get help today, then what can we do to keep you as alive and as healthy as possible until the day that you're ready for treatment? Because I'm going to tell you, if you have one disease of addiction that's trying to kill you, and then you have another disease like maybe hepatitis C or an HIV that's equally trying to take your life away from you, you're going to have an even harder time being successful in recovery. So as someone who cares about another person living with addiction, instead of just telling them you need to stop what you're doing, have a real conversation with them about what can we do to keep you safe then until the day that you do acknowledge that you need some professional help.
You know, again, out there in the world talking to people, I think, and that's why we're reaching out to the churches to get involved with this opiate epidemic, because it's your soul. You lost your soul, and once you regain that, that gives you the motivation and the tolerance to move forward and do better. So churches, we will be coming to you to ask you to support the community in helping us rid this opiate epidemic.
So, and when you say we, Barbara, who is this a group that you're working with?
Yeah,
I know you work with so many.
Sorry, they will kill me. The Columbus KAPPA Foundation.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, I'm working with
those brothers. Are awesome.
They're awesome. We're working in 43203, 43205, and 219.
Yes.
And we're working with families who actually be knocking on doors asking people.
I know they are. They're not the kind of people that will operate out this.
Last night I was sitting up thinking of a presentation that I'll be doing with the churches. I was wondering, I said, now I know why we got churches on every block. They're getting ready to do some work. And so I'm excited. I know that this will be a great help because, like I said, it's reaching that soul. And who better knows how to do that than the pastors, than the church.
And I have actually seen individuals that have, once they turned their life over and changed that whole lifestyle, that they didn't go back anymore.
They didn't go back.
but they went through treatment first.
They went through treatment.
And then they went into the church and changed their whole lifestyle. You talked about environmental. When you talk about environmental, are you talking about living in a community that is got a lot of drugs and alcohol in it?
Yeah, living in a community or being a part of a community. Because, community is more than just where you live.
Yes.
It's also how you live, who you are around. And so if you're around people that are using drugs, you're much more likely to experiment with a substance. Or that's also why we tell people, don't hold on to those medications that you have in your medicine cabinet, because if they're there, someone, maybe not you, but someone might come in and misuse those substances. So just being aware of your environment and the people that you surround yourself, I think, can be very important. And it's also an important thing, when you're talking about the churches, and we've got a whole lot of people right now that are living with addiction, and hopefully we're going to have a whole lot of people that are entering into recovery. And so as a community, we've got to start thinking about what can we do to prepare ourselves to create an environment where these people are able to come back into and become a part of and feel like they belong in a world that isn't associated with addiction.
I just want to say, when I say reaching out to the churches, when we do, it's not a religious thing. It's a spiritual thing, getting that spiritual connection. And I talked about when I decided to stop doing heroin, I didn't do it anymore, but I didn't get treatment. And so I used other drugs. So I had to get that treatment. So yes, recovery is a must. You have to recover from everything. You got to forgive yourself. You got to work on some things to improve yourself. Get back. You may not never get back what you lost, but you have a new way of life. And when you talk about environment, it's just amazing. Once you get the treatment and the recovery that you need, you're able to live. I work in 43203 where I used for 20 years, and it's just amazing how, and I'm not unique. There's other people as well who we work in that community that we used in. And I always wonder, why did I have to use for so long? But I believe I used for that long for the day.
Right.
For the day.
And you got a testimony to help somebody else.
I tell it all the time. All the time.
Now, how can you tell? I mean, you think that somebody's an addict or having some addiction problems. How do you know if they're having it? I mean, if they say, well, I only do this, when I come home, I have to have something to relax when I come home from work or when I come home from doing whatever I'm doing. And I only do this once a day or something like that. I mean, how can you tell if
they have an addiction? They can tell before we can tell.
But they're saying that they don't.
They don't.
So when I'm looking for, what I typically would tell people is when somebody stops being upfront or honest about their behavior to you, if you start noticing like they're kind of not being completely truthful about what their activity is, then that's usually a telltale sign that they know they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. So if you're an individual who is kind of thinking, man, I've been using this substance more often than I should, and I haven't been telling anyone about it, or I've been hiding it from my family, then you probably know maybe you should think about that. Or as a family member, if you start noticing inconsistencies in someone's stories, or they're not being upfront with you about their behaviors, then you probably know that there's something bigger going on there. Some signs you can watch, though, are just, of course, like your sudden changes in behavior, mood swings, or if you've got a kid, maybe a teenager in high school that used to go play basketball after school anymore, and he doesn't have any interest in that anymore. That's probably a sign that something's going on. Now, that might not always indicate drug use, but it could also indicate depression, or if your grades are falling. And then what we know, the medical director of the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services said this, and it really stuck with me. He talked about addiction being a disease of despair, which I think ties into why we see a lot of people who do live in poverty, like you mentioned earlier, are more susceptible to addiction, or someone with mental health disorder. But even kids in high school, depending on, no matter where you live, you could still be susceptible to bullying, or feeling depressed or negative about yourself. And so any sudden changes of mood, if you're a parent or guardian or loved one, you want to watch out for that to make sure that nobody is using a substance and that they're not going to, that they have support.
Now, we talked earlier about it being genetic. Okay, if you are this opium and like the what's the gabapentin and gabapentin, and you're taking it and you're pregnant, how does that affect the baby? The next generation. I mean, if you're using drugs, how does that affect the next generation?
Well, I think any medication that you're going to be using, you want to take under the supervision of your doctor. And we, of course, understand that sometimes pregnant women, because maybe they've fallen down the stairs and broken a leg, sometimes they're going to have to take a medication to accommodate pain. And so you're just going to want to talk really closely with your doctor, take the minimum amount that you can be prescribed. Opiates have been around for a really long time, and there's an appropriate place in medicine for opiate medications. Now, they can be very, very highly addictive, and after long exposure to them, that's when you start seeing those brain changes, and that's when those addictions can develop. But certainly you would want to try to minimize your exposure to opiates while you're pregnant, and make sure you're following your doctor's orders.
And what about people that aren't pregnant? They need to minimize the doctor is prescribing this, and they find out that they may be becoming addicted because they may have use for that drug. Right. But it can be addicted.
Yeah, there's been a huge shift in medicine lately. So now here in Ohio, we have new prescribing guidelines where you can only prescribe a short amount of opiates at a time as a doctor, and then that person has to come in and get a new prescription if they need them. So for any acute pain, you can only get, I think, 7 to 10 days at a time, because that's where we know that addiction can start setting in, is that 7 to 10 day mark of exposure is when you really can start developing a dependence on a drug.
So you said 7 to 10 days. That's I'm really I have a question. So before a person leaves the hospital, they could already be on set addicted? Because say I'm in there for a certain amount of time, right? So I can already be on, because I've seen it. I went to a hospital and that person was on Percocets. The person in the bed next to him was on Percocets. The person in the next room was on Percocets. What's this? The Percocet floor?
Are they over-prescribing it?
So I don't think they're over-prescribing it, but what I think is there's no plan
for weaning them off. Yeah, I mean, I think historically that's been a lot of what's happened. And I want to be careful when we talk about addiction, because there is a difference between being dependent on a substance and being addicted to a substance. And
what's that?
So when you start craving a substance, if you've used it too much, you become dependent on it. But addiction is kind of the extreme version of dependent. You are dependent on a substance when you're addicted to a substance, but when we're talking about that 10-day mark of being prescribed opiates, at that point in time, probably in most cases that you might be dependent on it, you might really enjoy taking it and you want to keep taking it so you can feel good like that. But in those early stages, that's where we want to catch you, because we want to be able to cut off your exposure to that drug, so that way you don't get further in that cycle of addiction. When we talk about addiction, we talk about it as a cycle. So we want to prevent you from getting too far down that road.
Oh, okay, you're listening to All in Our Family, and if you want to call in, we're at 1-877-932-9766, and we're on Facebook and also on YouTube. You can hit us up at Talktainment space radio on YouTube, and also on Facebook, which is Talktainment Radio /2. So you can hook us, listen to us, and we're also on 94.7. But we're listening to, we're talking about the opiate crisis and the addiction that we're having in our families and stuff. Barbara, you've been out there, you've seen people. Are they able to function, or do they have to function? Are they able to function, like go to work, or take care of their families when they're addicted to these drugs?
Now, me being honest, you can go to work. I remember years working and being addicted. But taking care of your family, you do the bare minimum. And you may think you're doing good because you're giving them food, a roof over their head, but it's more to taking care of a family than feeding them and clothing them. So those are the things that go missing. That's where it comes in, where you hurt your family because your family's seeing you high, and the broken promises you make, and you're not their mom anymore. You're someone else. I cry all the time when I remember when one day my daughter just followed me and said, no, Mommy, don't go, because she knew. She knew. So you do hurt your family.
How important was the support group that you went to? How helpful was it when you went to a support? You said you went, I don't know if you said it, but you went to Mary Haven.
I went to the women's program at Mary Haven.
And how important was that?
Oh, that was very important. It changed my life. It changed our life. And to get out there and see people who I knew, and they were doing so much better, even some of them being counselors. Just that support.
The whole life's changed.
Yeah, my life really changed. And I thank God every day for that. But I thank my support as well. People who would come and visit me or call me.
And that visit was important.
That visit was important.
To show that you had some support from family members.
Pastors. I had a pastor who would faithfully be there every week, him and his family, to see me, take me to church, and things like that. So that support is important.
But do you think that there's a time when you have to use tough love, or you have to watch people fall, or is it more important to be the supporter? I've heard some people say you have to do the tough love.
You have to, because you can cry, pity party. They giving you money because they don't want to see you out there doing whatever to get the drugs. But when that money's gone, you're gonna do it anyway. So supporting that and feeding that habit, I think we call it enabling.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you don't want to enable your loved one because you're giving them a bigger risk. Of using. And
well, how can you tell if there's a thin line between enabling and being showing some love? What's
showing love sometimes means saying no.
That's true.
Showing love sometimes means saying you can't come here and stay. So we have to know what love is.
But then they're going to be out there in the streets. If you say, hey, you can't come in here, so
we talk a lot about the importance of self-care if you're a loved one of somebody who's living with addiction, and when their behavior starts really negatively affecting your life, I think that's kind of a point where you can start asking yourself, am I enabling this behavior? Am I allowing this to occur? And if so, what can I do to take a step back to still let them know I'm here for them when they're ready to get help? But there also has to be boundaries.
Oh, you got to stay right there. We're going to talk more about addiction coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com. You've been listening to TalkTainmentRadio.com. You can download us to your cell, to your app, or a telephone. And this is radio, the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to talk more about addiction. We're going to talk about overdose and all that coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
What's wrong with me? Now depression creep. I'm stressed today, even in my sleep. My mommy called, I hit ignore. My daughter calls, I press ignore. My chin press on my chest, my knees press the floor. I'm blanking out, woke up on the couch. Dinner on my
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin' online.
That's ASHKICKEN KIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin' products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin' candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin' online at www.ashkickin.com.
Are you ready for a high school that allows you to work at a place that is right for you? Are you ready to earn a certification in healthcare, business, or manufacturing while achieving your high school diploma? Then you are ready for Life Skills High School, a free public school option for high school students 16 to 21 years old. Learn more about your free high school educational options at lifeskillshs.org or call them at 1-800-888-7992. Life Skills High School, education that fits your life.
Girlfriend, why are you in such a good mood on a Monday morning?
We just bought a foreclosed home and saved a ton of money.
A ton of money? What a blessing. Tell me how.
Well, Linco Realty specializes in selling foreclosed homes.
Linco Realty? I've heard about them on the radio. Yeah, that smart people buy foreclosed homes ad. Don't they have that website with all those vacant government and bank-owned foreclosed homes?
Yes, that's repohomelist.com. And they have lenders with purchase and repair money, even down payment assistance and credit repair.
No money down plus purchase and repair money? What's the number?
614-375-2289. Record low interest rates make some homes cheaper than rent.
Well, Bill wants a new home. Can Linco Realty help us?
Yes, Linco Realty can sell you a new home in over 50 communities around Central Ohio. They've been in business for over 35 years.
Wow, you've really been blessed.
Yes, we have, and you can too. Call Lincoln Realty today at 614-375-2289.
I've got the water, energy bars, and camera. I think we're set for the hike.
Almost. We need to protect our skin. Don't forget your wide-brimmed hat and sunscreen.
All right. I've got the hat. I've got SPF 30. Will that work?
Yeah, anything 15 or higher is good. Just make sure it says broad spectrum.
Great. Got it. I am not getting burned again. Let's go.
Learn more at cdc.gov/cancer.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cutter Brother Rest Barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
Every year, June marks the beginning of two busy seasons, summer and wedding season. If you are legally changing your name, you need to apply for a replacement Social Security card reflecting your new name. This is easier to fix now when you first change your name than years from now when you retire. So go to our website at www.socialsecurity.gov/SS number or call us at 1-800-772-1213, TTY 1-800-325-0778 to find out what specific documents you need to change your name and apply for a replacement card.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTimeRadio.com.
We must build and bond our family.
We've got the power.
TalkTameRadio.com. FRATERNITY.com. We go where you go. You can download Talktainment Radio to your cell, app, or tablet. This is radio the way it should be heard. And you're listening to All in Our Family, and I'm S. Yolanda Robinson. We have on our show today Melissa Green from the City of Columbus Department of Health, and Barbara Clark, who is a community advocate. You know, she's all over the place. I don't know what title. She's working with the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, trying to solve the drug problem in our community. But, on the first half, we were talking about, enabling and showing love. And so when people are addicted, that's in our families. So, it's kind of hard to not show love to somebody that you really love. I mean, you see them struggling, and you don't want them to be out there in there. But Barbara, you said that you have to do the tough love.
Yeah, you do. You have to understand yourself what love is. And love sometimes means saying no.
Yeah. So you just have to say no.
Right.
And watch them, suffer until.
Well, you don't have to watch them, but you don't have to contribute to their addiction, and that's what you're doing when you're enabling.
Okay. Now, if you have somebody in your home that may be having an addiction problem, and you know it, we were talking on the break that they needed to have a Narcan. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what does that do, and how do you get that
Yes.
if you have someone that's, that your loved one?
So Narcan or naloxone is the life-saving drug that reverses the effect of an overdose. And I was talking a little bit earlier about how all street drugs now, so your cocaine, your crack, your methamphetamine, MDMA, or ecstasy, those are all starting to get contaminated with fentanyl. So it might not just be people that you know in your family who are using opiates. It could be anyone who's using a substance maybe recreationally that also is at risk of overdose. So Narcan is completely safe. It has no effect on anybody. I could give myself a couple doses right now and it wouldn't have any effect on me unless I was had been taking an opiate drug. And so what happens is, you can imagine an opiate, it binds in your brain to the brain receptors, kind of like the way that a ball on top of a T, anyone ever played T-ball? A ball sits on top of a T. And then what the naloxone does is, when you get it in your system, it comes in and essentially bats off the opiate drug from that part of your brain, and then it covers or protects that part of your brain so it can't rebind, it can't come back on, and it brings you out of an overdose, and it keeps you from getting high again for another 30 to 90 minutes. And so that's why it's important when you use Narcan to call EMS, because it only lasts for a short amount of time. But you can get Narcan at any pharmacy almost in the state of Ohio. All the big ones carry it. You don't need a prescription to purchase naloxone. You can just walk right in. You can use your health insurance if you have health insurance to purchase it. So I got mine at the CVS down on Parsons Avenue, and it cost me a $10 copay. And for me, I think it's
worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, well worth it, and for the chance to save a life. Now, if you don't have health insurance, it can be a little bit expensive out of pocket, but that's okay, because we've got plenty of places in Columbus where you can go to get naloxone for free through our Project Dawn program.
So they can call the health department and find out what is that number that they
so call 614-724-HOPE. HOPE.
That's easy to remember.
Yeah, easy to remember.
Yes, that's great.
And then we can get you hooked up. If we don't have Narcan at the health department, we can get you the information for where you can go right now today to get it for free. We also are helping to sponsor with our partners in the Franklin County Opioid Action Plan a lot of community trainings. So Narcan's really easy to give to somebody. It's a nasal spray. So I always tell people, if you can give yourself a Flonase, you can give somebody Narcan and save their life. But if you don't take my word for that, you can come to one of our trainings around the city and we can help you, give you all the facts and information. You can play with one of our testers and practice giving it to a dummy or to yourself if you want, and walk out of there feeling confident that you have the knowledge and the skills to go out and save somebody's life.
Very many people dying from an overdose in our cities.
Oh yeah, so here in Franklin County we're averaging just under 2 people a day.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So it's definitely a problem here locally, and the numbers continue to rise because as we get more fentanyl and more carfentanil in our drugs, the drugs are just becoming more deadly and dangerous. And
I just suggest that everyone, if you suspect someone in your household is using,
just have that.
Have one in your car and have one in your house.
It's just like a first aid kit.
Just like
put that in with the first aid.
So I think everyone should invest the time in getting the training on the Narcan and making sure you have it. That's showing love.
Yeah, that's the way you show love.
Or even if you don't know anybody, you never know. You might encounter someone in your neighborhood.
That's why I said in your car. So you know you have
able to help somebody,
and you won't have to look far to use it either. It's so much going on, and that's why I'm glad we're going door to door because we're able to talk to those mothers who don't know where to go get help, or the mothers or wives who have family members on it and they don't think it's an answer, or they don't realize yet. They're like, oh, well, no wonder they've been acting like that, because we're going to have the conversations that bring out that bring to save someone's life.
Yeah. Well, what is tolerance, Melissa? When they talk about tolerance, what is that?
So when we talk about tolerance, we're talking about how much of a substance someone can use before they get high from it or before they experience a reaction from it. So if you have used opiates for a long time, the way that the cycle of addiction works is the longer you've used, the more you need to get that desired effect, and the more tolerance you have built up to it. The danger with the fentanyl being in lots of other street drugs is potentially, someone who encounters fentanyl or carfentanil has no tolerance whatsoever for an opiate drug, and so they're much more likely to overdose, and probably also much less likely to have naloxone on them because they're not planning on doing an opiate. You wouldn't think that you would need it.
How do you know when someone is getting ready to overdose? What are some of the symptoms?
So you're gonna look for somebody who has shallow breathing, or they're not breathing. Their lips are going to turn pale. Typically, you'll lose consciousness, and you won't be able to respond from an opiate. So if you're shaking someone and they're not responding to you, there's a good chance they have overdosed. So you'll blue lips, blue fingernails, and again, having difficulty or not breathing at all. And so we always tell people, if you suspect somebody's overdosed, again, that Narcan's not going to hurt them. So give them Narcan. Call EMS first. Let them know there's a health situation so that they're on their way. Give them Narcan. If they're not breathing, the same way you would with cardiac arrest, you're going to give them CPR if you can, and try to keep that blood circulating through their body, because even if they're not breathing, there's oxygen in your blood. So if you can keep it moving for the 4 minutes until EMS arrives, they're going to have a much better chance of surviving.
And that's why I'm so happy that we're working with the Columbus KAPPA, is that we also will be asking businesses to take the training and have the Narcan in businesses, because when you look out there on Mount Vernon and 20th, there's so many overdoses happening, and I'm just not sure if the businesses have Narcan. So we will be asking them to take the training.
Every job, because you were talking on the break, but we want to talk about it to the public. But you were talking about the corporate. You're doing something with the corporations to talk about what they can do.
So the Franklin County Opiate Action Plan, which was just released this year, has a corporate advisory council tool. And so we would encourage any small businesses, large businesses, corporations that want to get involved in that to get involved. You can contact Amy O'Grady over at the City Attorney's Office, and she can give you information about that. But part of what I think they're talking about is where do businesses fit in here? What can we do to support people who are living with addiction? How can we change our cultures of our businesses to be supportive of people who are living with addiction? So one thing, someone might be terrified of getting drug tested at work because then they'll lose their job, and so that's going to be a deterrent to them getting help, as opposed to if you're a small business owner or a large manager at a larger corporation, and you can create a culture where if you're living with a substance use disorder, come in and let us know. It's the same. It is a chronic relapsing brain disease, and we have to start approaching it that way, even on the business side of things, where you wouldn't penalize someone who maybe is dealing with cancer or who has broken a leg. And so we need to create an environment where people are supported to be able to get the help they need.
Is that working with the corporations?
Yeah, so I think they just had their first formal meeting, I believe, at the end of January, possibly the beginning of this month. So there's going to be more information coming out from that as they continue to meet and try to put together their own mission as a kind of coalition of what they want to accomplish.
What is harm reduction? I saw something on harm reduction, Melissa. What is that? When you're talking about harm reduction?
So, at a really fundamental level, harm reduction is something that we do every single day. Not just me as the manager of the harm reduction program, but harm reduction is seatbelts. Harm reduction is helmets. It's diet and exercise. It's immunizations. Essentially, every decision from the time that you wake up in the morning until the time that you go to bed at night is either consciously or subconsciously made first by considering that risk of harm that you're putting yourself in compared to the desired outcome. So a decision like, should I have one drink only and drive home, or would 2 or 3 be okay? Those are harm reduction based decisions, and they can have really important impacts on your life and the lives of people around you. When we're talking about addiction, we talked about addiction as a chronic brain disease, and because of the way that addiction impacts your brain, it really affects that person's ability to consider those risks versus reward that they're putting themselves in. And so harm reduction programs would be any program that is working to reverse some of the dangers of that substance use. So when we look at harm reduction, giving out naloxone, that's a harm reduction initiative. Doing a needle exchange, that's a harm reduction initiative. We also have community harm reduction, because we know that addiction affects the whole community. So doing a community cleanup event could be harm reduction, or a needle disposal campaign, a medication disposal campaign. Those are community harm reduction initiatives.
Oh, okay. And so your office does that for the whole city?
Yes.
Okay.
So we oversee the harm reduction.
You oversee, and so people that want to know about it, say if you have a civic association and you might want to do a cleanup or something, they can call your office and get involved in the harm reduction program.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to coordinate because Earth Day is right around the corner, so we would love to coordinate. We go out and have a training program where we teach people, if they see a needle on the ground, how do we pick up that needle safely? There's really the danger of getting stuck by a needle is pretty minimal, but there's still a lot of stigma, and I mean, it's just kind of, I remember the first time I saw a syringe on the ground, it took me back a little bit, but really you can feel empowered to pick it up as long as you're doing it safely. And so we'll teach people how to do that. We'll come out and join you and help take care of some of these issues with you, alongside you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, Barbara, what programs are you said you're going into the churches and the small businesses in the community?
Well, part of the pilot that we're doing is to educate on opiate addiction. And one of the things that we're doing is working with the faith-based community and connecting the person to resources that's available to them. So we'll have churches being the resource centers.
Are you just in the 43203?
43 is just a pilot. We're
It's just a pilot.
We're in 43203, 43205, and 43219. We're hoping that it expands. I know with the work and commitment that I have, because that's my passion. Is the infant mortality, which I'm also working on.
Doing the infant mortality.
Yes, I'm working with 12 women in 43203, studying why our babies are dying. And the two things, the common denominator that they both have is lifestyle. It's lifestyle. So working with people, encouraging people that there is a better life will help eliminate the infant mortality, but more than that, it will eliminate the opiate.
So all of that, the poverty, and all that has a connection.
Yes. It's mental health, underlying mental health, undiagnosed and untreated mental health, as well as lifestyle.
Oh, wow.
If we can work on that lifestyle.
To change the lifestyle,
it changes a lot of decisions, choices.
Wow. I know you have your job ahead of you, but you know what? I want to do everything I can to support you, but I know that you got
opening your mouth.
And I got my hands full right now. But I know with the people like the KAPPAs, whenever I see them coming out, I said, oh my gosh, here they come! It's like they're making a change.
And yes, they are. They're stepping up. These are men that are being men.
Absolutely.
They're not leaving anything unturned. They're going out there. They're talking to families, talking to churches, and coming together as a community. I've been in 43203 since I was 6.
Yeah, I grew up in 43203.
And so I know everybody, and building relationships is key. Them beginning to trust you, to know that you love